Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Dragon's Library. So today we are talking about the Cartographers. This is a book, and it is a very interesting one. I'm a little stunned on where to start for this. So let's go over the main premise. This is going to be the review section, so there are going to be minimal spoilers. Don't worry. So basically, this follows Nell Young, who wanted to be a cartographer because her father was one. He works in the map section of the New York Library, and as a result, he's apparently like a really famous cartographer. He's very respected, head of his field, that kind of stuff. But a long time ago, about 7 years ago, she got into an argument with her over an old gas station map she found in the junk box in her library's archive section. She thought the maps in there might be worth something, and he used that one as an example to kind of dismiss her. He acted really out of character and fired her. And because he is the leader of his field and put some pressure on other employers, she was unable to find a job basically anywhere except making maps for tourists, essentially. Like, basically not realistic maps, but, maps that sell to people that they want to put on their walls and stuff. So, obviously, although, she's very grateful to the employer who is even willing to hire her in even a, tangentially related field to cartography, she doesn't really like where her life ended up, and she's kind of bitter. However, one morning she goes in and gets a call that her father was found dead in his office. Upon going in, grieving and stuff like that, she checks one of his hidden drawers that he used to keep valuable projects in and finds the very same map that he fired her over and called worthless. Sealed in his, this is where my expensive work goes and my valuables. Hidden drawer, special folder, everything. So, what the hell is going on? It becomes very clear that someone else is looking after the map, and after uncovering that the map, similar copies of this map seem to have vanished or been destroyed from basically every other library in their system, she becomes convinced that something bigger is going on, there's a big overarching mystery, and that's basically the plot. Figure out, who wants the map, what happened to her father, somebody murder him, and she soon spirals out into her family's secrets, with both her mother, who died years earlier in a mysterious accident, her father's mysterious death, his actions years ago, even to the detriment of, his own best friend who used to work with him there, who tried to keep Nell around. And she tries to seek help from a former friend who supported her belief in the map and also got fired with her, called Felix, and they're also, former lovers, but after the whole thing where you ruined my career, they kind of broke up. So, yeah. How do I best explain this? So, my initial thoughts on this. This story is really good. I like it. It's not perfect, though. I have problems. Structure-wise, my biggest problem with this is likely the pacing. Now, the story is paced very slowly. However, I think it works for the most part. I know, giant asterisk there. So the slow build-up works at first. Building slowly into the mystery worked for the story I initially thought it was trying to tell. However, and I'm very trying not to spoil, the later half of the book starts to make the pacing look like it was trying to just extend the story's length, especially some of the scenes that happen later on in the book. It becomes clear that although the slow pacing was definitely necessary for some of the melancholy drama scenes with mystery and, oh my god, I'm paranoid at the beginning, as the story went on, it tried to keep that same pace. It tried to do these very long, drawn-out scenes where she's analyzing everything and talking and really going in depth to her whoever's thoughts, whoever's POV we're in. But it does not suit the later chapters, and even the middle and early chapters can often feel padded, like the author was trying to fill a word quota. I don't like to say that, because again, I do actually think the slow pacing, despite being difficult to listen to sometimes on an audiobook, did work for the story it was trying to tell. I felt very invested in each of these characters. I actually liked pretty much everyone in the book, which is a rarity for me. I usually have at least one character I don't like. Even the villain, I actually thought I was going to like him a lot more. Although after we get the final act reveal, I kind of was like, I feel like you already had a compelling motivation for the villain. I don't feel like you need to shove this in here. Sorry. My throat's a little sore right now, so if I sound a bit off, that's why. All in all, the characters are very nice. We don't get a lot of her father, mostly in flashbacks and stuff like that, and it's him as like a kid, so it's not as one-to-one. He comes off a bit bland, but I don't dislike him or anything. In fact, I like that he instigates the first conflict in the flashback scenes. The group of friends that were friends with their mother and father are all very nice. You have the rogue book dealer, who turns out to have a lot more complex motivation than just breaking off and getting a lot, less reputable. You have two others who broke off from their family and won't talk to them. One of them runs away the first time when Nell goes to meet him. Another is always trying to talk to her, but like the others, is very touchy when the subject of the accident or the map comes up and is constantly asking her about things and trying to get her to leave this all alone. I like Francis. He's okay. He's actually very nice. I like that him and Nell had a bit more complex relationship than, we should have never broken up. It's like, no, we broke up for a reason, and I'm constantly wondering if we should stay broken up. I usually hate romance side plots, quite frankly. I just do. I think we inserted them into way too many stories. We don't need to always have a romance side plot in everything. Seriously, it is not a necessity. But basically every story tries to shove in a romance. Now, it's not to say a romance cannot be done well, and I will say that having him, he is worked into the story well. I don't think we needed him necessarily. I think you could probably take Felix out, change a bit with some of the later twists and to fit, and the story could function without Felix. It does feel like he is here because there needs to be a love interest, like ticking a box. Now, that doesn't mean I don't dislike him. I even like how they show more complex relationships, something they do for basically all the characters. All the characters, some of them make very dumb mistakes, especially when the flashback scenes with the father and the mother's friends, and this, summer they were out there with the thing that I'm trying very much not to spoil with the map. But they come off as realistic. There's a pair, and I'm really trying not to spoil it here, but this isn't really too much of a spoil because you're not going to hear about before the flashback scenes, and it just sheds some more light. So there was a pair that cheated on a girl who cheated with another on her boyfriend who they were in love with, but she had feelings for this other guy, and they started doing this, and they knew it was wrong. They were going to put a stop to it. They were like, oh, look, we can't keep doing this anymore. We need to stop. I should never have done this. But then some other stuff happens, and it becomes a whole thing, and ends up causing a fracturing in the group, which, yeah, is a very realistic thing that happened. They were horny kids who decided to do something stupid, and they kept doing it, and then they realized it was wrong, but it was too late, and it destroyed their group's dynamic. And there weren't just one reason. It wasn't this one relationship. It was there was the actions of Daniel, there was the actions of the two lovers, the little love triangle, there was Wally stuff, there was, what's his name? Bear stuff. Basically every member of the friend group contributed in some way to the fall, but not a single one of their actions was the reason the friends imploded like they did. And the main plot point that I'm not trying to dance around right now, because I kind of want it to be a surprise, acts a lot like, it's not like this. So there is a light fantasy element to this. I really hate saying that because I feel like I've spoiled something for you, but I do need to make a point here. So the fantasy element, there's a fantasy element that revolves around what they were doing with the map. And, in most fantasy stories, it'd be like, oh, the whatever magic corrupted the main group and turned him, against them. It's like, no. The person who ends up kind of being the villain, especially being the villain once they throw out the complex character motivations in favor of supervillainy near the end, which, sorry, that ending was I feel like you wasted a lot of potential here. Aside from that, it all feels very realistic. This feels like something that could actually happen to real people. It wasn't wibbly-wobbly magic made them evil, and which I'm fine with if you want to do that as a plot point. But this grounded itself in a lot more realistic. It was like, no, this was based on their own flaws as individual characters that tore them apart, that drove them to the places they went to, that drove their actions. Even the father's actions eventually become explained. And I like that. I like that it wasn't that we're just corrupted. It was that their own failings destroyed them, and they have to deal with it in addition because they don't want it to destroy Nell. That's an interesting overarching plot. It's an interesting theme to hang the story on, along with the different, themes of maps and the places we draw and the effect on the world they have, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that in there. I like basically everything up until like the last section. So the book is broken up into 4 parts, and the last part, called labeled the Cartographers, is my least favorite. Part 4. I feel like they had a really good climax ready to go, like hand delivered to them, and she kind of bungled it. The writer kind of bungled this one. For those of you who don't know, this is by Peng Shepherd. She's a pretty good writer, from this alone. Like, she bungled the ending a little bit, in my opinion. And again, that's entirely my opinion based on what I was getting out of this book in the first part and what I wanted to continue. She obviously didn't want to go in that direction, so that's fine. But, I would actually like to read some more stuff. I heard she also wrote The Book of M, which means she really seems to like the way that literature and art affect the world around us, which I've always been heavily fascinated on. As a fantasy concept in general. I've loved that concept. This scratched an itch for me. I haven't had in a long time. So kudos to her for that. Seriously, this is a good book. Despite my complaints on it, I'm really nitpicking here. This is a solid 8 out of 10 for me. It's not perfect. Although, to be fair, after part 2 finished, I was like, oh man, is this going to be a contender for the Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik when that comes out this later this year? It's like, am I going to have to choose another book? Because that's like the objectively better book, but it kind of bungled the ending for me, so the Golden Enclaves is probably going to be a better book. Please, Naomi Novik, do not screw up at the ending. I love your series, but you kind of don't have the best endings. You kind of don't have the best series finales most of the time. Looking at you, Temeraire Books. But yeah, so moving on from there, I talked about the characters, talked about the overall structure. Well, what do we have? We have my overall opinion. Like I said, I think this is a very good book. I think you should definitely go read it. It is more worth your time than a lot of things I've read. I'm currently reading Obsidian, and while I'm liking that for its unique magic system, the characters come off a little paper thin to me. Not to say they're bad, they're just a little generic. And I really, really like the characters in this. I think the characters truly make this book. It has a cool murder mystery plot going on. It has a subtle fantasy element with urban fantasy. It has an urban fantasy with like a hidden magical power in the world that I actually buy that no one has found just due to the way it's integrated. They make it very clear that some people have found it, but it's very clear why they can't easily show it to the world. And I really like that. I think it's amazing. I think the final chapter did bring home everything for me. It was kind of melancholy but happy, and I've always been a bit of a fan of things that are both like sad but with like a hopeful sting at the end. I don't know. But yeah, so I would definitely rate this as an 8 out of 10. Go read this. It is a fantastic book. Again, really worth your time. So, the non-spoiler section of this review is done. Again, this is a mystery book, so I kind of feel bad adding a spoiler section. Because I feel like if you listen to my spoiler section without reading the book, you are actively robbing yourself of a really good read. I actually listened to this on Audible, and the voice actor for this is the same voice actor, or one of the voice actors actually. They have multiple voice actors for different POVs, which is not something you see often in audiobooks, and I really appreciate it. It shows a level of quality. But the voice actor, her name is Emily Wu Zeller, did the DFZ series, which was the spin-offs of the Heartstriker books, which if any of you have watched some of my older reviews, you know I absolutely love those books. They're by Rachel Aaron. Go read or listen to those as well. And she does a great job, as always. So, yes, I'm doing a spoiler section, but this spoiler section is for those of you who have already listened to or read this book. Do not listen to this. podcast and / short YouTube video this far unless you have listened to or read this book. I cannot emphasize that highly enough. Okay? Everyone who has not, read or listened to the book gone, it's on Audible. You can get this pretty decently cheap with, Audible subscription or whatever, and just, please. Okay, they're gone. I know some of you are going to listen regardless. You've ruined this for yourself. I hope you understand that. Okay, so let's get to this. So as Nell starts uncovering everything, she uncovers a web of her father and mother's old friends. She learns that she was at the house when it burned down and her mother died in the fire. And that the map has a small error. So basically, this is actually something about maps in general. Back in the early days of the automobile, when roadside maps became popular, there was a problem with large companies stealing the maps from smaller companies. Now, since a map is literally just the data of the landscape, it's hard to prove that they didn't just go do their own survey and get the same results because it's the same area. So what map makers began to do was hide errors inside the map. These errors, these phantom settlements, would basically act as a copyright claim. Maybe a mountain is just a little bit higher than it should be, distinctly higher enough that it can't be an error, but also not too high that it's it's like some minor mountain is an extra 200 feet higher than it should be or something like that. Minor errors, or maybe you have Phantom Town in some nowhere portion of the map that's not listed on the index. Little things like that won't affect 99.99% of anyone who reads the map. But if somebody tries to just copy the map, they will get in trouble because they'll stumble over an error and voila. You can take them to court and prove that they were copyrighted. Now, this map had a phantom error, a false town called Aglow. It was a little bit further north of Rockland, New York. And when Nell finds this out, she realizes that must be why the murderer, the person who killed her father, who then broke back into the museum after she posted the information about it online onto the servers because she had found it in there. She wanted to post his last work. She ended up deleting it afterwards to try and hide it, but the murderer was already on to her. And he obviously wants the map because he broke into the library, killed the security guard, and didn't take anything else. Now the police are investigating what's happened. She's starting to look like a suspect. One of them is following around in a van. And she's very paranoid because she's holding a map that somebody was willing to kill both her, looks like it was, willing to kill both her father and a security guard to get a hold of. In addition, the security footage shows him appearing in the room out of sight of the camera suddenly because their motion triggered, so they only got started up once they saw him in the room. He didn't appear in the lobby's cameras, and he damaged the camera only to vanish without reappearing on any other security cameras. So it's almost like he just appeared in the room and disappeared. Everyone's really confused and kind of scared. Nell finds out her father was in contact with a disreputable art dealer, map dealer, who was also one of his old friends, and she takes the business card, the map on the back, and finds her office. She gives her a specialized map that her father had wanted. It was a map of the museum, but with a small error. One of those copyright errors. It had a small room attached to the room the thief had appeared in. I bet, and at this point, especially after the next day, Nell tries to go back and get more information. She can't find the place because the lady had her give her the card. You've all figured out what the magic system is. Small errors in certain types of maps can cause phantom rooms or even full-on towns to actually become real, possibly due to human belief or perception. It's a little unclear, and it's kept vague as a loose magic system, and it's utterly fascinating because it's very specifically maps. But it gives you quest for thought. Have inaccuracies in maps been shaping this whole world the whole time? To what extent does this work on? Now you don't really know. And there seems to be directly related to this company who had some kind of strange machine. Now, I do like how they keep this magic system very vague. So it looks like it was one specific company who was making these maps. And they had a weird printer of sorts. There's no details on how it does. Everyone who's around back then is dead. The details are gone. The company apparently tried to sue another company over copying their map, went to Aglow to verify that it wasn't there, then quietly dropped the case and settled out of court. In addition, it's that town, that phantom town, is just up the road from where her mother's accident happened, where her family and her friends and their friends were staying at a rental house over the summer while they worked on some kind of student project for their dissertation. As you can imagine, there are a lot of things adding up. Okay, so the town is one of these phantom towns. They discovered the power of the maps, and went out, and as they disbanded, each of them went out and found other maps that could give them access to these hidden rooms, secret passageways, shops that you can only those you trust can enter, that kind of thing. Which is pretty cool. I like it. It's a cool, subtle magic system in the world. Also, since it's only small inaccuracies on a specific type of map printed by this one company, it explains why no one has figured out about this. In fact, there are a few people who seem to have figured it out. But a strange group called the Cartographers goes around disappearing anyone who gets too close to the truth. Now, it's later revealed that the Cartographers is just the murderer, and he's related to the old friend group because that's what they called themselves. He's revealed to be Wally. He was sort of like the background friend. He was in love with Nell's mom, but never made too much of a big deal of it and always kept to himself because he knew she loved Daniel, or Nell's father, and he wanted them to be happy. He and Nell's mom found the town together by accident because they bought the map from an old pawn shop by there, an old antique shop. They didn't want, the lady was very nice to them. She was like, "Hey, would you buy this for $1?" I don't get a lot of customers. They were like, "All right, you've been very helpful to us. We'll buy that." And while they were checking out the map, the town north, they realized there was some kind of phantom town without people. Now, Wally wanted to keep it as a secret, but Nell's mom convinced him to tell the others. And then there are a few misunderstandings, tensions rise, they begin working on a dissertation. They want to show off this new town, this phantom town created from a map, to others. But Wally becomes increasingly paranoid after Daniel tries to send a letter that gets sent back to them, of course, due to a mislabeling in the mail. It gets sent back to Daniel, but he was trying to let their professor know what they found. And Wally freaks out because he wanted to keep it private for very personal, emotional reasons, actually, not for what you might think. Anyway, there are also betrayals, like the couple sleeping, the guy who sleeps with another girl, one of the other friends, betraying his girlfriend's trust. There's the fact that the friend who had set up the house for them to work on this project of theirs, some kind of fantasy atlas, as a sort of dissertation on reality and the way maps can affect that. He told them it was their family's house, but he actually rented the house and was planning to get a job. But after they discovered Agalo, he couldn't get away for long enough. And so now he's in a lot of debt over it and doesn't want to ask his friends for it because he's always been strapped for cash. And he's in a really bad spot. And basically and meanwhile, Wally becomes more and more obsessed with trying to find more copies of the map, for basically almost like an obsession over the town, trying to learn more about it. This distrust and betrayals and sneaking behind everybody's back, Wally ends up blackmailing the cheating couple to try to get Francis to not tell anyone about the fact he's been going around stealing maps and stuff like that and trying to buy them for lots of money. As a result, he's also brought attention to the fact this map is apparently very valuable to the right collector. So now, small groups, and even by the time Nell's an adult, there are people on chat rooms saying that some people will pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. And it all leads back here. And it's the group's individual failings, their personalities, the way their friend group was set up, the way that Bear always felt he had to keep the friend group together at all times, because if they ever separate, even for a single summer, maybe they wouldn't come back, and they were basically all he had outside of his family. The love that Francis had for another girl, and that Wally had for Tam, and the way that it all just imploded on itself. Like, these were failings in their own friend group, but outside of the stressful situation of the town, they were able to deal with them, The town gave a private place for Francis and his... Not Francis, I'm sorry. I forget the other boy's name was. But for the boy who cheats on his girlfriend to secretly have sex with his other love. And that gave them an outlet to do this. It gave Wally and Tam, Nell's mother, discovered the town together and made Wally feel like the town was special. It was a connection with the woman he loved but could never have, and that he had to protect it at all costs. It amplified, it took his quiet obsession that he'd always suppressed with Tam and gave it an outlet he didn't have to suppress with it. So he was free to unleash all his desires and neuroses upon the town. He had to control it. He had to know it. He had to own it. It was his. It was supposed to be his and Tam. He was angry that he made she made him tell the others. He's distrustful of the fact that he trying to tell other people because he wants to keep it for himself. Daniel is probably the least guilty, but he still went behind others' backs and did something because he's always been controlling. It's their individual failings as people that lead to the end. In fact, the girl who was cheated on, the former girlfriend, after she finds out, ends up helping Bear steal one of the maps Wally had gathered so they could sell it to a client who would sell it back to Wally, and essentially stealing money from Wally in order to pay for the house because the loan sharks are after him now. Partially as betrayal, partially as revenge on Wally and the, cheating couple. And basically all of the problems are the neuroses of the characters amplified by the situation they were placed in. And I know that's basically saying it's good character writing, but it is. And I really have to explain this because the flashbacks as they build throughout the series, like every other chapter or so, we'll get like a flashback with one of the friend group characters. And they come up across as so real and understandable. These are actual people. Yes, people who sometimes make stupid decisions, but come on, you're a person. You've made a stupid decision. I know I have. Those decisions weren't always based in logic. Those decisions were, I put off schoolwork and ended up cramming at the last moment. I actually didn't want to do that. I just did it because I'm an irrational human being sometimes. But they come off as, correct in character to a frankly frightening degree. And it's one of the reasons I have a problem with the last part of the book. See, at the very end, they end up going back to the town, finding Nell's mother is alive. She originally died with, delivering Nell out of the fire, collapsed, and I'm like, okay. And then she vanished with the town because she actually slipped the map into Nell's clothing and given it to the father. Now, at first it's just like, okay, she's still dead though. She was burned all over her body, but apparently she survived. She used the town's properties and the printer they found there in order to, create buildings for food and water and stuff. And she's been rebuilding the map. The father came there. They decided they had to protect it from Wally, so she's been making an atlas to have control over the place. And once they dealt with Wally, once Wally was no longer a threat, the father was supposed to come in, reintroduce Nell to her mother, and they were supposed to show the world this place. Because they didn't want to just be forgotten. Now, it comes off a little odd because, you had the mother who, I guess she couldn't come out without letting Wally know because that meant there was a map and Wally was dangerously obsessed with the map to the point of, he did kind of by accident murder Nell's mother. So, yeah, he was a dangerous person driven to complete utter despair by the end. Which is a little weird how he ends up becoming basically a supervillain. He wants to plug in he ends up secretly, getting an alias and creating literally, and this is how the author described it. It's one of those weird moments where you're like, author feels a little wanky. It's, the bigger than Google or Amazon. It's the biggest company in the world. And he basically is doing the Google Maps thing where he's trying to create the most detailed satellite map. It's but they reference Google, so Google exists here. Why couldn't you just have him working on a secret Google project and be a high up executive at Google? That would actually make a lot more sense. Cause they definitely add in some themes through him of surveillance technology and how location data and all the data being fed into algorithms these days can be used to track us. It's used both in a positive and negative light meant to show a nuanced view of the subject and show that it's really the person in control of this technology that's dangerous. But the fact is, sometimes the person who made the technology is the one dangerous one, and do we really want to let them make it uncontrolled? There are some themes like that in there. I'm not going to get too much into it. The ex-boyfriend for Nell, Francis, I kept saying was this other guy, works for that company. And that's the job that he managed to get after the whole, junk box fiasco. So, all in all, I don't like his final plan. So basically, he wants to use his super Google map with all its algorithms and scan the map for Aglo. And basically, expand the effects of basically if you have the fewer map copies there are, the more effect modifications to a map have. So when there are only like 2 maps, if you create a really, really detailed version of the map, you can actually add entire buildings to Aglo. So his idea was he was going to scan Nell's mom's extremely detailed atlas that she had started working on before the fire, and was why she stayed in the world, because she had that while the others got forced out. She was going to basically scan that and destroy it into his server, which would then become sort of a master control map for the entire world. Now, I feel like this sacrifices a lot of his, I have to get back to this place that was supposed to be mine and only mine, to I'm going to use a map to control a perfect world thing. And it just doesn't mesh with a lot of his earlier characterization in a way that I found disappointing. Like, I would have liked, I'm not entirely against the idea of Nell's mother being alive. I think it was detrimental. I would prefer the story scale to stay a bit more small scale. Actually, I think I would have been happy if we never even went to Aglo, just have this be this event that scarred everyone. And maybe they have to convince Valali, or maybe he won't be convinced, that he needs to let it all go. But I'm fine with the direction they went to until all these plans revealed. See, at first, it was like, okay, he wants to get back to Aglo. He wants to get back to the Fantasy Atlas. He wants to get back to Tam, Nell's mother. I feel like her and Aglo itself was enough of an obsession. You didn't need to add in the whole supervillain plotline. I feel like it took the character focus of it and deviated for the sense of making a point about how our perception of the world can be affected by large companies who control maps. Like, he even goes into a big spiel of, people don't actually know where they're going nowadays. They just watch their phones. And it felt like the story was like moving away from its core emotional hook in order to make a point about how global map apps and things like Google Maps and Apple Maps have affected how we navigate the world. And those are valid points. I don't disagree. I think they're well-presented points. I just feel like it was almost from like 2 slightly different versions of the story, and she tried to make both the emotional, I need to get back to this place that was special to me and her, even if she's not there, but I hope she is still, with this, I want to control the world supervillain plotline. It doesn't entirely mesh for me. That might be a me problem, but it is a problem I have with the book. And it was something I could really only talk about in the spoiler section. So, yeah, I've had a lot to say about this book, obviously. My voice is getting a little hoarse right now, though. I had a bit of throat thing right now, so not really sure how that's going, and I don't want to stress my voice too much. It's late, and I need to get up early tomorrow. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and I will hopefully be getting this on YouTube a lot quicker. I've got a new system set up for that. I'm hoping to add some new animation for this one, but don't count on that. And if you want to continue watching, I should be still streaming my Ghostwire Tokyo playthrough. Please come and join me for that. I'd really appreciate it. It'd really help me out. Thank you to the 7th person who subscribed to our channel on YouTube. Again, big help, big thanks. All in all, thank you to everyone who's watched this, or who's listened to this. Seriously, it means a lot that anyone actually wants to listen to me talk about this stuff. Alright, well, I'll see you guys next time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to The Dragon's Library. Please subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. The Dragon's Library releases new episodes Tuesday and Friday each week, and you can follow us on Twitter at dragon_library2. If you want to suggest an episode topic, my email is in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for all your support.